Please stick the landing, please stick the landing, please stick the landing, please stick the landing. Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mr. TARDIS, and today we're reviewing the concluding box set of the Fourth Doctor Adventures Series 14. This is The Last Queen of the Nile, and if you've been following my reviews, you'll know that Series 14 I haven't really been a big fan of, which is a shame because as I've been reviewing Fourth Doctor Big Finish seasons, I think that they've been pretty good. Series 11 started a bit shaky, but I really liked that. Series 12 was also really good, and Series 13, that was pretty solid. I enjoyed that one as well. Series 14 though, the Hellwood Inheritance and the Ruins of K'Rula, I just wasn't really a big fan of those ones, so I was a little bit trepidatious getting into the final set, The Last Queen of the Nile. But I'm very pleased to tell you, this ended the series on a very high note. In fact, I'll say that, you know, if you've been put off by Series 14 because of my reviews, I apologise, then I think just dive into The Last Queen of the Nile as just two really strong, really solid stories. We've got two of them here. We've got Conspiracy of Silence by Jonathan Morris and The Last Queen of the Nile by David K. Barnes. This box set follows on with the tease at the end of The Ruins of K'Rula, with the Fourth Doctor, played by Tom Baker, getting a call from the Brigadier, played here by John Coleshaw, saying, "Doctor, come help, for there's something going on," and then they do. So Series 14 has been following the Fourth Doctor along with Leela, but in The Ruins of K'Rula, K9, played by John Leeson, also joined the crew as well. So here we've got the Fourth Doctor, Leela, K9, the Brigadier, Cleopatra, and also the Silence. The Silence, of course, being the Stephen Moffat created villains from Series 6 of the revived series. And apart from being a bit lukewarm on the prior Series 14 box sets, one of my trepidations going into the Last Queen of the Nile box set was that I haven't really been a big fan of the Silence in Big Finish audio productions. Not saying the stories have been bad, but it's like, oh blimey, the TV series really did get the most out of them, didn't they? And there's just not that much there, I think, for Big Finish to really pick up on. Boy, was I proven wrong in Conspiracy of Silence. So this box set, 6 episodes, but Conspiracy of Silence is a 2-parter. The majority of the runtime has gone to this big war Egyptian epic, The Last Queen of the Nile, but Conspiracy of Silence is a really blisteringly well-paced 2-part story which sees the Fourth Doctor, Leela, K9, the Brigadier, and dispensable Unit Sergeant Nolan, played by Charlie Hayes, going to an oil rig which isn't drilling for oil or gas, and they sent out a distress signal, but whatever happened to them happened so quickly that they couldn't evacuate and there's no one on the site now. There's some temporal distortion so the TARDIS can't land there, so the crew go to the oil rig via helicopter to investigate the disappearance of the some 150 crew. But they arrive on the rig and there's nobody there. There's no bodies, there's no sign of struggle. Just 150 people have disappeared and there's no one in sight. No one, of course, but the Silence, but as soon as our heroes see the Silence, they immediately forget that they're there, and they have no idea what's going on. They're none the wiser.
Ah, you must be the Silence.
At last you discern our presence.
Oh, come.
But even unarmed, we will defeat you. We know your plan.
You will forget. Your recollection is transient.
What do you mean? Well, I'm only guessing. It's some sort of psychic defense mechanism. Remote induction of anterograde amnesia. Wipes all short-term memories. Am I right, or have I forgotten something?
You are correct, Doctor. I shall allow you to remember a few words, but the rest you will forget.
We'll soon see about that. Just need to find a pen.
She is dead again.
Affirmative.
Oh, what a pity. And we were just getting acquainted.
Writer Jonathan Morris, I kind of consider him to be a safe pair of hands for Doctor Who stories. You know, recently he's not written anything that's really blown my mind, but you know, he's clearly a massive fan of Doctor Who. The characters are always on point, and you get a pretty solid story that's always fan-pleasing. Conspiracy of Silence is all of those things as well, but I think because of the frenetic pacing, and I think because of its utilising of the 2-part format to really interestingly structure this story, and also going into references from Series 6 of Doctor Who as well to flesh out the Silence, I thought Conspiracy of Silence was a brilliant 2-parter. Probably my favourite thing that Jonathan Morris has written for some time, and I'm not trying to damn it with faint praise, you know, he's a good writer, but this was really good. Firstly, it's genuinely creepy, like the suspense and the way it it builds up over the story is like legitimately effective and edge of your seat stuff. And the mystery of what happened on this oil rig, what is the rig even drilling for, it's really interesting. And a big part of the appeal of these box sets is what would the Brigadier do if he encountered the Silence? What would Leela do if she encountered the Silence? What does K9 do with the Silence? Is K9 even affected by their memory wiping capabilities? While the Series 12 story Stone Cold featuring the 4th Doctor and Leela with the Weeping Angels, while that was a good story, I was a bit let down that there wasn't a big Leela and Weeping Angel confrontation. I think that Leela is such a brilliant character and an antagonistic character that just basically put her in a room with an iconic Doctor Who villain and sparks will fly. That's just a layup, that's just an open goal, and I think that Stone Cold didn't really take it, but they do with Conspiracy of Silence, and Leela interacting with the Silence, she's great in character. I really enjoyed those moments. And it's also a story that really rewards repeat listenings and really paying attention to the contextual clues over the course of it. Like when the Brigadier is like, I've left my gun somewhere, but I don't remember doing that, I'd never do that. And Sergeant Nolan, she checks her weapon, I fired all of these bullets, I could have sworn that I loaded the gun, and it's like, this is really interesting and I can't wait to see how this pays off. And also, because Jonathan Morris is always a fan and his stories have got fan-pleasing references, at first I thought that he had forgotten the "You should kill us all on sight" part from Series 6 in Day of the Moon, where how on earth can you have a story set after the 1960s on Earth and not have the Silence immediately get killed by people who see them? But it turns out Jonathan Morris was several steps ahead of me because that's part of the plot. He's a clever lad. But like I alluded to earlier, I think that the crown jewel in the Conspiracy of Silence story is the structure. And I really can't give it away without getting into spoilers, but the way that it utilises the two-part format, kind of similar to Series 9's Under the Lake and Before the Flood, I think that is the key reason why Conspiracy of Silence is such an effective story. And for my money, the best Big Finish silent story. And of course there's the novelty of Tom Baker of all Doctors, the 4th Doctor, encountering the Silence. This big bombastic presence of a Doctor. What does he do against the Silence? And of course he is charming and affable, but genuinely a bit scared as well. I do wish that the Brigadier and Leela had more moments together, because unfortunately the Ruins of K-Rula box set didn't really make the most of that character pairing, which I thought was a bit of a shame. But still, it's a two-part story, and I think that otherwise the allocation of characters and the resources in this story are otherwise really well done. And the priority is this story first and foremost, not trying to, pick up from the lacking potential from the previous box set. I'm not going to hold that against Jonathan Morris. But yeah, a really good and effective two-part story, leading into The Last Queen of the Nile by David K. Barnes, where the TARDIS lands just outside of Alexandria in Egypt, roughly in the early 30s BC. The Doctor, Leela and K9, they encounter Mark Antony, played by Michael Lumsden, who's returning from a military campaign, and they are fascinated with the metal robot dog. So they essentially kidnap K9 and the TARDIS and bring Leela and the Doctor on board as part of their group, and they meet Cleopatra, played by Pippa Bennett-Warner, and it's a fight for survival as the 4th Doctor and Leela try and find a way to get the TARDIS and K9 out of Egypt before a massive war breaks out. Because this romance between Mark Antony and Cleopatra, it threatens the power of Rome, as our TARDIS team have landed just before the War of Actium, and a tragedy of Shakespearean proportions is about to unfold.
Farewell, Doctor!
No!
Stop! You will not kill this man.
Don't interfere.
You will not! The magician has been sent by the gods to deliver to us a warning. The woman too. They minister to the needs of the Oracle.
What fevered rambling is this?
Doctor, you are hurt.
Well, never mind that. What's she rambling about? What oracle?
The Oracle foretells disaster for us both. For the whole of Alexandria. Listen to him now.
Queen Cleopatra speaks the truth.
K9, what do you think you're doing?
War will soon be declared. Octavian has the backing of Rome.
What? You take the word of a dog?
Leela, is what the Oracle says true?
I do not know.
Do you foresee our deaths at the end of a great war?
Well, she can't tell you that, no more can I. I'm sure K9's exaggerating.
Negative.
Ah, shut up, K9.
For heaven's sake, this is ridiculous. If you'd only
My
just...
Lord Antony!
Canidius?
A man has arrived from Rome, bearing a message from the Senate.
Oh, what's it say? Well?
It says, Octavian Caesar, with the backing of the Senate and the people of Rome, has declared war against Egypt. and her queen Cleopatra.
The closest comparison that I can think of with The Last Queen of the Nile is The Massacre, the first Doctor story. And conceptually, that's pretty high praise. I think that the story is lacking in some several key elements, but it's still a fascinating chapter in Doctor Who's history where you have a pure historical story and it's mainly just a fight for survival from our TARDIS team. And The Last Queen of the Nile absolutely feels like that. It's a really epic 4-part story, and Leela finds herself in the right place and the right time to become Cleopatra's bodyguard, and is brought into Cleopatra's inner circle because her nature just makes her incredibly fascinating to Cleopatra, and Cleopatra trusts her. And on the other hand, Leela sympathizes with and admires Cleopatra and wants to save her and change history, because this war will result in the death of Mark Antony and Cleopatra. Spoilers. One mild disadvantage with The Last Queen of the Nile is that it's only a couple of Big Finish releases after The Death and Life of River Song, The Dissolution of Time, which is dealing with very, very similar themes. The idea of this character in history who's meant to die. In the case of Dissolution of Time, it's Anne Boleyn, and in The Last Queen of the Nile, it's Cleopatra. And a time traveller lands on their lap, and they discover that, oh, they are a time traveller, and I'm going to use them as an oracle. I'm going to use them as a way to figure out my future and find a way to try and stop it from happening. Very, very similar themes, very similar stories. With Cleopatra, it's more explicitly canine as an oracle. I obviously can't hold this box set or David K. Barnes' story against it, but you know, when I was listening to The Last Queen of the Nile, and only 2 releases ago I was listening to The Dissolution of Time, I thought, okay, have they traded notes, or is this just a massive coincidence? But either way, The Last Queen of the Nile is a really strong, epic historical story. Part 3 in particular, as an episode, is an all-timer, where you get this real sense of crushing inevitability as the Fourth Doctor kind of just sits back and lets history unfold, and Leela is trying to fight against the forces of time itself to try and make sure that events are better than what they're preordained to be. And the conflict that arises between Tom Baker's Fourth Doctor and Louise Jameson's Leela is really fascinating to listen to unfold. The actual arguments they have, and Leela is like, I know you're trying to protect the web of time, and the Fourth Doctor says, forget the web of time, the webs are for spiders, like, we do this because it's right. And I thought that was really, really fascinating. The whole exchanges between the Fourth Doctor and Leela over the course of the story are really brilliant drama, just fundamentally strong. And Louise Jameson in particular really rises to the occasion as a performer. Part 4, the ending of Part 4, you know, naturally where this story between Cleopatra and Mark Antony, where it winds up going through history, it deals with some really dark and morose subject matter, and Louise Jameson really treats it with the solemnity that it deserves. And Tom Baker is great in this story as well. He is dealing with a much more morose Fourth Doctor, who has shockingly little patience for Mark Antony. This is one of the stories where you really believe that the Doctor, you know, the Fourth Doctor, his pockets are too big, his scarf is too long, and he has a robot dog, but no, he is still a Lord of Time. And as he said in Pyramids of Mars, he walks in eternity. He has very little patience for this. Naturally, the cast are great. I think that Pippa Bennett-Warner is a brilliant Cleopatra for the audio medium. Michael Lumsden is convincing as the big-headed Mark Antony, who ultimately gets a massive slice of humble pie. And ultimately, The Last Queen of the Nile does feel like a story that could only be told in a program like Doctor Who, in a time-traveling show with a robot dog, where you're able to utilize not just time travel as a format and a medium for telling stories, but as a way to get drama out of the material, out of the subject matter, able to get conflict between not only the immediate characters, but the ongoing characters like the Doctor and Leela, which is fundamentally why stories like The Massacre and the First Doctor's era, while I think that the character work there was lacking, as opposed to like The Last Queen of the Nile where the character work is on top form, it's still a fundamentally strong piece of time travel fiction because of those fundamentals, and Last Queen of the Nile is a great evolution on stories like that. But yeah, Last Queen of the Nile, terrific Fourth Doctor box set. I actually think it's the best Fourth Doctor box set since Angels and Demons? I mean, it's slightly unfair. Angels and Demons has 4 stories. Wizard of Time, Friendly Invasion, Stone Cold Ghost of Margaret. You know, the deck is stacked against it, but you know what? Yeah, I'll plant my flag there. Last Queen of the Nile is a terrific Fourth Doctor box set, and for my purposes at least, you do not need to have listened to parts 1 and 2 of Series 14. I think if you want a really strong Fourth Doctor box set, dive straight in with this one. I am very happy that in terms of subjective quality, Series 14 ended with a massive bang. Was that bang big enough for you, Brigadier? But yeah, highly, highly recommended. I would be surprised if the last Queen of the Nile box set is not in my top 10 come the end of 2025. But thank you so much for listening to my review of the 4th Doctor Adventures Series 14, The Last Queen of the Nile. Let me know what your thoughts are on it in the comments section below. Thank you so much for watching, subscribe, hit the like button, all that wonderful stuff, and folks, I'll see you all next time.